Hi guys, in this video we'll be looking at the examination of nose. So what do I mean by examination of nose is someone comes to the ENT/OP with some complaint related to their nose. So what are all the different complaints they have? What are the different signs you're going to see? What are the different investigations which you're going to do? All of that will be covered in this video, and it's very sad that it's not present in some books like Dingra and all. So I've just put it together for you guys. You can just listen to me and you can just go through different parts of books and you will find this somewhere scattered around here and there. So first of all, the various symptoms which you're going to encounter with respect to nose are nasal obstruction. So this nasal obstruction is blockage to the pathway of air from the external environment into the respiratory system. So, with respect to nasal obstruction, you need to know two things. One is the laterality and the latency. So, laterality, I mean, is it unilateral or bilateral, single side or both side block? And then, second thing would be your latency. Is it intermittent in nature or is it progressive in nature? So, why you need to know about the latency is in case of allergic rhinitis or any allergic disease, it is intermittent in nature. There are alternate blocks, that is alternate nasal obstruction. These are all hints which you can pick up from the symptoms. If it's progressive, then it can be any kind of nasal mass or any granulomatous nasal disease or something like that. You can start thinking about those things. And moving on, the next symptom would be nasal discharge. Very, very common. So nasal discharge, first thing again would be your laterality. Is it unilateral or bilateral? To, for example, you have a unilateral nasal obstruction with discharge. It's mostly going to be foreign body. So you can guess those things. In a child, it's going to be foreign body. So those are all useful hints which you can pick up from the symptoms. The next thing would be the character of the nasal discharge. So there are four types of discharge: watery, mucoid, mucopurulent, and purulent. So watery discharge can be confused with CSF leak. So CSF rhinorrhea is some condition which occurs due to trauma. Usually to the frontal sinus, you reach the anterior cranial fossa and then CSF starts leaking from there. So how do you find this is there are a few tests, like you have your blood test where you have some target shape appearance, and you have your beta 2 microalbumin test, which is the gold standard test for detection of CSF. You can do all those to check if it's CSF or not. So coming back to the character of the nasal discharge, can be either watery, mucoid, mucopurulent, or purulent. So when you say purulent, it means it's infectious. It has some kind of pus in it. P for pus, purulent pus. Just remember that. Then any bacterial disease is going to produce a mucopurulent or purulent discharge. So, and the amount of nasal discharge is also important. I forgot to mention it here. So the amount of discharge you can gives you sometimes the hint of what type of disease it is or the extent of the disease. Now, nose bleeding is a very, very important symptom which patient may present with. So nose bleeding, yeah, according to the previous video which we saw, there are two sides of nose bleeding. One is anterior, which happens in the Kieselbach's plexus, or posteriorly, which is in the Woodruff's plexus. Anterior is due to arterial and posterior is due to venous. So those are the small small hints which you can remember. And then sneezing and itching are symptoms for any allergic conditions. Moving on, olfactory dysfunction. So there are any altered smell sensation, like anosmia's absence of smell, hyposmia's decreased smell sensation, parosmia's altered, and then cacosmia's obnoxious smell sensation. So headache is a very vague symptom, but whenever someone says headache and they are directed to the ENT department from general medicine, then please think about sinusitis, the most common cause of headache in ENT. So those are all the symptoms which you need to know about: nasal obstruction, nasal discharge, sneezing, olfactory dysfunction, and headache. Moving on to signs. On inspection, as soon as you see, you can find out gross congenital anomalies like micro improper nose development or some kind of cleft palate. All those things you can as soon as you see the patient, you can find out, or he has a laceration or some kind of blunt trauma which caused some kind of fracture in the face. You can easily find it out if it's very very serious. But other than that, we'll go straight into the palpation. So in palpation with respect to ENT, the first thing is sinus examination. So when you press over the different areas of the sinus, there might be tenderness present. So the three sinuses which you can check are your frontal sinus, your ethmoid sinus, and your maxillary sinus. Please note, you can't test for sphenoidal sinus tenderness. The next most important thing is your anterior rhinoscopy, posterior rhinoscopy, and diagnostic nasal endoscopy. So in your anterior rhinoscopy, you use this thing called tudicum speculum, and you open the anterior nares, and these are all the different structures you're going to see: the nasal vestibule, the nasal septum, the mucosa, the lateral nasal wall, the nasal floor, and nasal roof. So the nasal vestibule, what are the diseases which may be present are furuncle and vestibulitis. So now this vestibulitis is usually a spread of disease from the frontal sinus or cavernous sinus, thus making it very dangerous, and that's why this vestibule of nose also known as a danger area of face. Moving on to the nasal septum, the different kinds of conditions you can see on the nasal septum are deviation. Either you have a C-shaped deviation, a S-shaped deviation, a spur. So those are the different types of deviation which may be present. And then septal hematoma, as accumulation of blood over the nasal septum due to some kind of trauma usually. And you can, if this septal hematoma is left untreated, it may develop into a septal abscess. So these are all things you can visualize on the nasal septum. Moving on, the color of the mucosa. So it can either be pink, which is normal. In infectious conditions, it will be bright red, and it will be bluish and wet in allergic conditions. That is the correlation between the color of mucosa and the lateral nasal wall. Finally, in that lateral nasal wall, you can see four structures: the inferior turbinate, middle turbinate, inferior meatus, and middle meatus. So when you see the turbinates, you can see if they're normal or they're hypertrophied. So there's going to be some tests which you can do, like probing test, and then on does it touch on bleed, does it bleed on touch, and those things are just used to differentiate between a turbinate and a polyp. So we'll talk about more of that when we go into pathology. But you can see turbinate hypertrophy or some kind of polyp coming out of there. And then inferior meatus, where the nasolacrimal duct opens, is usually very narrow and cannot be visualized. But if you use some kind of pressure and open it up, you can see, and this is usually the common site of foreign body in the anterior part of the nose. And finally, in middle meatus opening, you may see a pus point, which which gives us hint of maxillary sinusitis. And then the nasal floor, you can see any kind of polyp or mass, basically any malignancy or nasal mass. And then the nasal roof is usually not seen because it's superior and posterior. But if you're going to see this area, then you need to use a good amount of decongestants and maybe even topical to visualize this area. So moving on, anterior rhinoscopy must be performed for all nose cases, and this is the diagram for anterior uh, rhinoscopy. So you can see the inferior meatus over here, and then this will be the inferior turbinate. This will be the middle turbinate, and then here's the meatus, middle meatus, and then this will be a nasal septum. This will be a nasal septum on both sides. Yeah. So moving on to posterior rhinoscopy. So it's you use a bent Christian mirror. I'm not sure about the name. I'll just check it up before telling you guys. So what are you going to see in the posterior rhinoscopy are the posterior margin of bony septum. That is the posterior part of the nasal septum. The posterior end the of inferior, middle, and superior turbinates. So you can see that over here, one, two, three, that. And posterior conus, opening of the nasal cavity into the oral cavity. Then the eustachian tube opening impression, the fossa of Rosenmuller. This fossa of Rosenmuller is very, very important because this is where usually some kind of mass is hidden from our examination, and it's very important. They might even ask this as a short note, so please go read about this. Then you can see the roof of the nasopharynx, the adenoids, and the nasal surface of the soft palate and uvula. So those are the findings you're going to see in the um, posterior rhinoscopy. So posterior rhinoscopy, as a MBBS graduate, you are not expected to do it to all patients, but you are expected to know how it's done and what are the structures which you can see. So this is how it. This is the procedure how it's done, and this is the diagram which you need to draw in your case presentations. All right. Moving on, finally, diagnostic nasal endoscopy. So there are two types of scopes, your rigid and flexible. Your rigid scope is more resolution but less field of examination. That is, you can't manipulate it into spaces of the posterior part of the nasal cavity and the pharynx. So there are three angles present for the scopes: 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and 70 degrees. Then there's a flexible scope which is less resolution but more examination, but it's more difficult to handle and requires experienced person to handle it. So what you do is there are three passes which you do in the diagnostic nasal endoscopy. The first pass is along the floor of the nose from inferior to the uh, superior posterior part. So what you see are the first you see the opening of the inferior meatus, the nasolacrimal duct, the eustachian tube, and torus tubaris. So this torus tubaris, the maxillary sinus drains beneath this, so you can see if there's any pus point or some kind of infection going on over here. And after this, you rotate it to 30 degrees, you will see the nasopharynx. So that will be a first pass. Your second pass, you will come from superior to you'll go superiorly. So your first pass is inferior, second pass is superior. So your superior, between your superior and inferior turbinate, where your sphenoethmoidal recess is present, that will be your second pass. And your last pass will be the deeper parts of the middle meatus, this torus tubaris area I said, right? So you can go in and see the bulla, the hiatus semiramis, the infundibular entrance, and the uncinate process. Basically, the maxillary sinus, ethmoid sinus, and frontal sinus, all the drainages, and see if some kind of pathology is going on there. Other than these, there are some special rhinologic test which you're supposed to know. One is the nasal patency test, which you all commonly do, with cold spatula test, wisp of cotton or Cottle's test. But what you need to know is there's something known as active anterior rhinomanometry, which is used to actually measure the pressure differences and see if actually air is going in, how much is going in, how less is going. All this can be accurately uh, found using this active anterior rhinomanometry. Then allergic testing, where you have a skin prick test, and serologic testing IgE. There are different methods. The abbreviations are PRIST, RAST, NEAST. You can go check them up. Uh, then finally, olfactory testing. You can either give them any thing which can smell like coffee or cinnamon, or you can use the standardized testing method, which is the UPSIT, University of Pennsylvania Smell Identification Test. Other than that, for any case of nose, you can have X-rays, which are three views: Waters view, Caldwell view, and skull base, and CT of the face of paranasal sinuses is crucial before any face surgery. So that will be all for this video. This video will be very, very useful for you to attempt any question and know. So please do watch it or rewatch it and just go through all the important points over again. Thank you.